Okay. The September 23rd, 2025 School Board Special Meeting and Workshop is called to order. Ms. Tresky, please call the roll.
Mr. Cherry.
Here.
Mr. Link.
Here.
Dr. Jamison. Ms. Quintana. Ms. Trigg.
Here.
Mrs. Watkins.
Here.
Mrs. Apel.
Here.
Oh, the calendars are here. Yay.
Thank you to all those attending the meeting in person and those that are joining us tonight via the RCPS YouTube channel. So we move on to the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented?
So move.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Cherry, seconded, was that by Ms. Watkins? Thank you. All right. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. And the motion carries and the agenda is approved. Thank you. So moving on. Dr. White, please provide the superintendent's updates.
Very good. Good evening, Madam Chair, Vice Chair Cherry, members of the school boards, and student representatives. This evening, we're bringing forward several items for your information and consideration. Approval of benefits for the 2026 plan year, discussion of year-end local funding availability and true-up funding application, as well as a review of the draft legislative priorities and positions for the 2026 General Assembly, and our student performance data report. Before we get to our agenda items, however, a few highlights and items for the board's information. Today, we celebrated more than 800 students from 35 schools and programs across the region at the Special Olympics annual Big Feet Meet. So we are so very proud to once again host the event at William Fleming High School. And I'm so proud of our students who participated. I'm also proud of the many students who volunteered and who supported their peers. So I'm just so very proud of them. So a special thank you to our special education team for organizing such a great event. This is always a wonderful display of We Are One, and so I'm just very proud of that. So hats off to the team. I also want to congratulate both of our high schools for a great game during last week's Noel C. Taylor Classic. And so we congratulate both schools, and special hats off to Patrick Henry, who won the Mayor's Cup against William Fleming High School. In addition, the U.S. Army recognized this game as one of the nation's top 100 rivalries and presented scholarships to players from both teams and a special trophy to Patrick Henry. So we are proud of both of our schools for representing RCPS well. And again, I want to thank all of our principals and our staff members for working together to ensure that our community had a great game day experience. Now, on to our reports for tonight. So I would like to now ask our Chief Financial Officer, Kathleen Jackson, to come forward for a review of the proposed medical plan design changes for the 2026 plan year for your consideration. And as you will recall, at your meeting earlier this month, we discussed the need for some cost adjustments potentially due to the increase in healthcare costs across the nation. So, Mrs. Jackson, over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. White. Good evening, Chair and Mrs. Apel, Vice Chair Mr. Cherry, members of the school board and student representatives. As Dr. White said, we are going to continue the discussion of our health insurance coverage. And I know Mr. McKee and our HR team stand ready if there are any questions specific to what is covered in our plan design and that sort of thing. But you'll chiefly be hearing from me this evening since we are talking about the cost of our coverage and some possible changes to our plan design as a result. So just to start off, just a reminder, you had this information in the last meeting, but just to, we do have three medical plans that we offer to our employees. We have the high deductible health plan with a health savings account, which we commonly refer to as the HSA plan. We have the health reimbursement account, we commonly refer to as the HRA plan. And then there's the more traditional plan that is lower deductible, but certainly quite a bit higher in the premium area that we make available to our employees. So most of our conversation this evening will be centered around the HRA plan. About half of our employees are on that plan currently, and so most of our adjustments that we want to bring to your consideration are related to that plan. So just as a reminder, kind of why are we talking about this? We do have our renewal rate projections for next year, and they are unfortunately coming in higher than the estimate that we had at the time that we were developing our budget. So at budget development time, the estimate was an increase of 5.5%. What we're seeing now is an increase of 7.3% in overall costs. So that is because our plan year follows a calendar year. That variance will only hit the current fiscal year for half of the year. We estimate that to be approximately $300,000 more than what we budgeted in the current year. But of course, we are continuing to hear that we should be expecting that kind of increase, if not greater, in subsequent years. And this increase any increase in subsequent years will build upon this. So that's why we are kind of looking ahead at adjustments that we might need to make now to help cover our healthcare costs and make us continue to be able to make those available for our employees going forward at a reasonable cost. So one of the items that we're looking at is adjusting our deductibles for our HRA plan. Currently, those deductibles are $2,000 per individual, $4,000 per family. We're proposing increasing that to $3,000 per individual or $6,000 per family. And just to, let me reiterate that and remind the public that we do have HRA dollars that help offset that cost partially. So the employee share of that deductible that they are responsible for is really $1,000 per individual, $2,000 per family. So we would be going up to $2,000 per individual or $4,000 per family. One of the reasons we are considering that is we did look at the impact on our employees if we make that change. So we looked at the percentage of our employees who are currently on that plan who reach that lower deductible as it stands right now. And those percentages, as you can see, are fairly low, so that it's still not pleasant, but eases the concern there a little bit that a relatively small percentage of employees on that plan even reach the existing deductible, therefore likely would not feel that impact. So that's just a consideration. So just to kind of put those numbers together, once again, with those HRA dollars coming into play, we would be looking at the employee responsibility for that deductible moving to $2,000 per individual, $4,000 per family. And when we did do some research and looking into how do we stack up against neighboring school divisions, we did find that that was pretty standard in most school divisions in this general region to have that sort of $2,000 per individual, $4,000 per family. So that would not put us out of the range of what is pretty normal for school divisions. So the next piece that we also had some conversation last meeting about was the employee and employer share of the premium costs for this plan. And so with costs going up, we're going to have an increase regardless. Currently, the Roanoke City Public Schools share is about 90% of that cost, and our employees are asked to cover about 10%. It's between 9 and 10%, depending on whether they're employee only or employee plus family. So we have looked at, last meeting we looked at potentially increasing that employee share up to 12.5% or even 15%, because we were hearing from our insurance consultants that 15 is pretty standard across the industry, that most, in fact, we found that some of our neighboring districts even have a higher percentage than that the employee is asked to cover. So what we're bringing to you this evening is kind of that splitting the difference, that kind of middle-of-the-road proposal of considering increasing the employee share to that 12.5% of the premium cost. And one good note about this combination proposal of looking at the increased deductible as well as that premium adjustment is increasing the deductible doesn't just help cut costs for Roanoke City Public Schools. It cuts those costs for our employees as well, those premium costs. So that eases that burden. It's just a few dollars each paycheck, but it eases that amount a little bit. So you can see kind of the last column. We looked at the first few columns last meeting. That final column is what we're bringing to you for consideration this evening, would be changing the employee share for HRA to the 12.5%, combined with that deductible change. So we would be looking at a $24 per paycheck increase for employees on the employee-only plan, about a $39 increase per paycheck for employees on the employee plus family plan. And I know there's a lot of information there, but just to see, I just pulled out those two examples, sort of the low and high end, but here you can see all of the options and what that year-over-year difference would be. I mentioned that our conversation is chiefly around HRA, which is true. We are not proposing any changes to the HSA. That would continue to be no premium cost to our employees. Roanoke City Public Schools would continue to absorb the cost of those premiums for individuals on that plan. Traditional plan, we are proposing, as we covered last meeting, some small tweaks to the employee-employer share on a couple of levels here, not really for the purpose of cost savings, more for the purpose of trying to move a little bit closer to more parity across those plans. As it stands, the school division covers a much larger percentage of that cost for folks on certain levels than others. And so I'm just trying to make that make a little bit more sense in terms of how much we cover for employees regardless of which plan they happen to choose. Sorry about that.
All done.
Almost, not quite. Okay, so just kind of to summarize, all of the change to deductible and adjustment to the employee-employer share of premiums, we do project would cut our health insurance costs by about $1.75 million across an entire plan year. So that would cross fiscal years. And just a note as to, as I started the conversation, of course, we are not seeing that significant of a difference in this current year just from the rate increases, but it's really being presented to you because of not only the current year, but also what we're anticipating in subsequent years. So, we are hearing nationwide that significant increases in health insurance costs should be anticipated for the foreseeable future of 10+% even. So just to put that in perspective, a 10% increase would be over $3 million a year for Roanoke City Public Schools. So a $1.75 million reduction wouldn't even offset that. So we certainly would expect, even with making this change this year, that this time next year, we would still be bringing some kind of an increase to you and to our employees that we would have to collectively budget for and share. So the proposal for your consideration, just to summarize again, is to increase the deductible to $3,000 per individual, $6,000 per family on the HRA plan, and adjust the employee-employer share of premium costs so the employee share becomes 12.5% on the HRA plan. And with that, I will happily take questions or comments.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Before we go on to the motion and subsequent discussion, we'll start with some questions. So start on this side, Ms. Watkins or Ms. Trigg. Do either of you have any further questions for Ms. Jackson at this time?
Questions? Thank you.
I have one. Can you pull the slide back up? Go back to. Right there.
Okay.
Okay. So we're going from 56 to also an increase of $1,000 for individual, $1,000 increase for family.
Yes.
Okay. That, I just wanted to see that again.
Sure, thank you.
You. And then Dr. Jameson, Mr. Link, or Mr. Lopez Ortiz, do any of you all have any questions for Ms. Jackson at this time?
No questions at this time.
Just to clarify, on this slide, we're seeing costs per paycheck.
Correct.
And then if you advance 1 and 2 slides, it goes to monthly costs, correct?
That's correct. And our insurance costs come out over 10 months for all employees. So since most of our employees are on a 10-month contract, so that would be divided over 20 paychecks, 2 per month. So you're right, that the subsequent detail is a monthly cost.
And so this year, we're facing right now, we're looking at a $300,000 shortfall,
Yes.
which this isn't going to happen, but assuming all other things, all other line items stayed even, we're really looking at 300,000 this year and 300,000 next year for a total of 600,000.
Correct.
And making these changes saves us 1.75 million, which is in excess of the 1.2 we're projecting, or no, the 600 we're projecting.
Yes.
But still shy of the 3 million our consultants are telling us to brace for next year.
Correct.
Great summary.
It was.
Well, and just to go from there, the 3 million will not hit in all of next academic year then, based on our plan year.
That's correct.
So next year, really, our fiscal year would be looking at 1.8-ish million dollars,
That's correct.
assuming
Across- yep.
10%, assuming all of these assumptions are correct.
Right.
With the full up to 3 million or even more by then hitting us the following year.
That's correct, yes.
Other questions over here? Dr. Jameson, further questions?
This is as much just a question about I don't believe that we have a board have seen any emails or correspondence about this. Have any of our stakeholders, have you all been hearing any feedback? This is the second presentation of this plan. This particular solution is new, but less than the previous possible at 15%. Has there been any feedback from any stakeholders that you're aware of?
I am not aware of any. I know Mr. Freeman reached out to make sure that the REA was aware that we were bringing this back for further discussion tonight. But I don't believe there was any specific feedback that came of that.
And I am not aware of anything else. I know that the board took this up in the spring, and I know that we talked about the possibilities of the rise in healthcare costs in this, well, I say the spring, but it was about May. In the spring, when we had these initial conversations, I really haven't heard anything since then. However, in all fairness, I mean, we're presenting it tonight during the work session, and so we could, again, keep it posted if the board so chooses to do so prior to you making a decision. So that's for the board's consideration.
Thank you, Dr. White. Mr. Cherry?
Yes, so just to clarify, what percentage of our workforce is under that traditional plan again?
9.
9, 10, okay.
Yes, 9% is on traditional, yes, sir.
And I guess with those increases, I mean, that is a lot of money. Would we be, are we going to be speaking with that 9% body and giving them all of the options? Because, I mean, that is hefty. Just want to make sure that
Yes.
we, okay.
The traditional plan is, you're absolutely right, is our most expensive plan, quite a bit more costly for both the school division and the employees who choose to be on that plan. And so candidly, we tend to see that size of increase annually for folks on that plan. But I appreciate you bringing that up because our HR team is going to be doing an active enrollment this year. So we will have counselors having conversations and meetings with all of our employees to provide all of this information and help with that education piece across the plans so that folks know what the options are and can make the best decision for their families.
Open enrollment is November. Okay.
I just got off the phone with them though, and I apologize for coming in late. They just called me and they would like to. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
I'm so sorry. I was just on the phone with them before I came in here, and they would like to change the dates to November 5th because we are closed on November 4th. And for them to fly all their counselors here and drive, it would be kind of a waste of time to have them sitting in a hotel for the Tuesday that we're off. So they are requesting us to change it from the 3rd through the 14th to 11/5 through the 19th. And by noon tomorrow, we are supposed to get a schedule of the schools that they're going to go to. They've even taken like their themes and their colors, and they've got everything really organized. Every single person will have to meet with a counselor, and then we're also going to have a call center. It is out of Texas, so Texas is open from 8 to 5. But for Virginia, it's going to be 9 to 6, which is perfect for our teachers and all of our employees to go home, and if their spouses want to talk to a counselor, they can call. And then we're also going to get a report every day. Dominic and I are going to get a report that will say, you know, hey, here's who signed up, here's who didn't. But they're going to be texting them, calling them. They're going to be doing a lot of this work for us. And all of this is at no cost to us because they make the money off the voluntary benefit commissions. So, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Don't leave.
Sorry.
Go ahead, please,
Thank
Ms.
you,
Watkins.
guys.
Sorry about that.
okay.
Do the employees get a summary, an annual summary of benefits so that they can see what their usage was prior to these meetings?
They could get that through their EOB,
That's
through
what I mean.
United Healthcare, absolutely.
They get that? Do you think they have that, or so they can be prepared for those individual meetings, or?
I think that some people are super educated with benefits. I'm one of those. I love benefits,
Right.
but not all. But we
Right.
could ask if United Healthcare could create some kind of message to everyone and say, click here for your, you know, review of your benefits. I think that would be a great idea. Thank you for the feedback.
Thank you.
Sure.
Y'all have an app, right?
We do. We have a mobile app, but the usage isn't very high. We just have a lot of people that kind of go with the flow until they need something. But yeah, we can definitely do that. We
I
can
think
push
that
that
it would
out.
be helpful for those who are worried about reaching their deductible,
Mm-hmm.
or excuse me, they're reaching their deductible,
Mm-hmm.
and just for them to see how far away from it they were this year, and think about what might be coming up in their family and in their lives as far as healthcare needs. I think it would be an important factor in their decision-making process.
Okay. I was also thinking that with the save the date information that we're going to send
Yes,
out.
yes.
We could put something on there that says, you know, check this.
Yep.
So that's
That
a
would
great
be the right
idea.
place.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for that.
No problem.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. Did I cut somebody off?
No, Mr. Link?
I was just for clarity's sake, we don't do an active enrollment every year. But by choosing to do an active enrollment this year is what opens up some of these counseling services. Since we're having such a notable change in the plans that are being offered, by doing an active enrollment, it opens up some of these counseling resources so staff can better understand their choices.
Absolutely. And they won't be able to go online and pick their own benefits. They actually have to meet with one of the counselors. If they can't make that date, they'll make sure that they get back with them and be as flexible as possible with their needs.
And if they choose to not meet with them, they just roll over on what they already have? Do they get to keep it? But they,
No, so everything would cut off 12/31/2025, and everything new would start 1/1/26. But with the way that we have the open enrollment dates, we're going to have lots of time to go back and you know, analyze the data and review everything to make sure that, you know, hey, we're reaching out to people who haven't signed up. We're reaching out to people who had a flexible spending account in 2024. They didn't sign up for 25. Are you sure you didn't forget? All of those things. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Jameson, did Ms. Trigg ask your question?
I think so. I wanted to, it sounds like, it's not like that anybody is going to be able to accidentally forget to enroll with
Correct.
active
Right.
enrollment, right? I mean, that's,
Right,
there won't be an automatic rollover.
correct.
So whatever you had last year will no longer apply. I mean, I'm saying it as somebody who takes advantage of that option all the time.
Absolutely.
So there will be this hands-on approach to make sure.
Absolutely. And then we also have like a soft ending on the, sorry, I just got off the phone with them, so I didn't have it memorized, on the 19th or the 14th. But then on the through the 15th through the 19th, we will be working behind the scenes to make sure that we haven't forgotten anybody. Nobody will be forgotten. We will make sure that we reach out to them. Nobody will lose their insurance. We will make sure. Even if it's on 1/1 or 1/2 when we're back to work, and we find out that somebody for somehow didn't get their insurance, we will take care of them. We will not let anybody suffer or be harmed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I do appreciate that information, and actually, I do think it would help me, my peace of mind, that we, as a board, got like follow-up on how the active enrollment went, since it was the first time in a number of years that we are doing that, so towards year end. I do want to note a couple things that, we knew we were going to be over budget, like Mr. Link very succinctly put, we are going to be over budget for this fiscal year due to healthcare costs going up higher than we had projected. So change in some way was inevitable. I think the concern of the board, and for those of you here, it seems like there's not a lot of discussion here tonight, but I just wanted to let you know, though, there have been a lot of conversations with administration and within each other to discuss what is the best way, in light of the situation that we're in, which is out of our control, what is the best way to take care of our staff and our employees? And one of our big concerns was making sure that one of our big stakeholders, REA, was able to be notified. So, because again, we're trying to have a very collegial relationship that is collaborative, transparent, and communicative with all of our staff, including REA. So I know I'm pleased that that was able to happen ahead of tonight. My concern was, are we artificially rushing this decision if we could say, make this vote a little bit closer to open enrollment? But I did appreciate hearing that, open enrollment can be bumped by another day, so we get extra staff on site to help our employees, and that we're going to really make sure to follow up to make sure our employees are taken care of. So I also did appreciate that in light of these changes, which will impact our staff, that it is still very reasonable and competitive with our neighboring divisions. So, but with all of that said, I just didn't want us to rush into a decision that would impact all of our employees. But what I'm hearing tonight, it does not feel like, my feeling is that the board does not feel rushed at this time. But this is our discussion time if there's any further questions, so.
Madam Chair, I'll just say that also that we have our standard meeting with the REA tomorrow. So that gives us another opportunity to have personal kind of conversations with them. So if the board chooses to table this vote to another time, we have another opportunity to have that conversation. Like I said, in all fairness to them, they haven't had this presentation long, right? So they're just getting it, just like you're just getting it. And so, so that if the board chooses to table it, then there is time. Again, I would ask that we not table it too long into the future, because we do need to give our employees ample time to sign up and to have counseling with the one-on-one representatives. But I just wanted to put that out there. We do have an opportunity to have that conversation tomorrow.
I saw Mr. Link.
I did. I thought it was worth making sure it's clear on the record for any new-ish ignorant parents like myself, that the REA is the Roanoke Educators Association, and that's the input that we're trying to get before we make a final decision.
Yes. And it seems like potentially my my inclination may have been incorrect. Is there assent? Do we feel like we need to take a pause? Because we can simmer this, let it wait for a week. Ms. Quintana is not here to put in her opinion at this time. Or do we,
We meet again next week.
yes, we can. We are available to meet next week. So,
If I may give my opinion.
yes.
I think we should wait that week. I would give the REA a chance to respond. I did not hear when we asked if there was any feedback from any of our stakeholders, so they may not have had a chance to digest this. So I don't know that anything will change about our outcome or our vote, but I think we could honor another week.
And I do value that we know we have a meeting tomorrow with the REA, so they will have had some time from now until then. So, and this won't change. Open enrollment is still over a month away, and it's even being pushed back a little bit. Mr. Cherry, any further comments?
No, I was gonna say, I do agree with you, Watkins, about keeping that level of transparency. So, yeah, I'm ready to move forward, and I would like for us to go ahead and pause for a second and give it that week. All right, so, Madam Chair, I move that we lay the pending motion regarding benefits on the table.
Moved by Mr. Cherry. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Seconded by Mr. Link. Is there any further discussion about the motion to lay this motion on the table? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of the motion to lay this motion on the table, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say no. All right, and thus, Mr. Cherry's motion carries. We will lay this on the table at this time, and we will not continue this vote until at a later date. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
And
you
we
very
do
much.
encourage feedback in the interim.
Mrs. Jackson, if you could just stay where you are. And so, as we know, the board would like to continue discussion of year-end local funding availability and our true-up funding application. So Mrs. Jackson has a few updates that she will share to provide context and a timeline for moving forward. So, Mrs. Jackson.
Thank you very much. And we will jump into that. I just have a few some of this you've seen before, reminder slides of some of the things that we've discussed previously that we might apply for any year-end true-up funds. And just as a reminder for anyone who might be tuning in for the first time and might have missed our initial discussion of this, it is in the city's school funding policy that any year-end funds, whereas revenue might have exceeded budget, we are eligible to apply for up to 40% of that variance to council for any projects that we may need. So that's what we're discussing tonight is how that process will work. This is a new process. This is the first year of this, so thus the discussion of what that will look like. So just as also a reminder of sort of the timeline, because this is new, we discussed last meeting of how we might try to approach this. So you see highlighted there, we're at the September 23rd work session. I will let you know our hope was to be able to have a little bit more detailed discussion with you tonight with numbers attached. But unfortunately, we don't have that detail just yet from the city. They're still working through their year-end numbers as we're working through our audit process as well. So we don't have those numbers yet of what, if any, year-end true-up funds might be available for us to apply for. So we will continue to stay in contact with our colleagues at the city and certainly bring that information to you as soon as we have it. But just a reminder of where we are thus far in our discussion, and I certainly welcome any additional thoughts or comments at this point to guide us as we do get that information. But we did have a lot of conversation last meeting about capital needs, because this is sort of one-time money that can't necessarily be counted on annually, that we did have a lot of discussion about typically perhaps focusing our requests on capital needs, those that either have come to the surface or that are in our capital plan and perhaps further down the line. That's some of what you see here. Fleming track replacement, for example, is in our capital improvement plan, but certainly would be valuable to be able to move that up sooner rather than later, that kind of thing. The first item there, of course, alleviating overcrowding at both high schools is sort of a number one. That's a pretty large price tag there for adding modulars for our high schools. So typically, if there is revenue that exceeded budget in a year, we don't typically see that big of a dollar amount. I'll just put that out there, but it's certainly a consideration if by chance there is that up to 4.5 million available. That certainly would be a high priority for us. But I'll just pause there if there are any other questions or discussion that you want to have at this time about priorities.
Thank you, Mrs. Jackson. So, Dr. Jameson, Mr. Link, or Mr. Lopez Ortiz, do you all have any questions or comments for Ms. Jackson?
No comment.
I guess I feel compelled to remind myself and the rest of us that for this first priority, this idea of having modular units at the high schools to alleviate overcrowding, and Dr. White can correct me if I'm wrong, but in ballpark numbers, both of our high schools were designed for roughly 1,400 students. And they are both, hang on, I did some math. They are both 28% over capacity because they both have roughly 1,900, right? So they're both designed for 1,400 and they both have 400 extra students than they're designed for.
At least, I don't know what today's numbers are, but they're running right about 2,000 students at this time. Yes.
Oh, it's higher.
Yeah, it's higher.
Oh.
I think these remain the things we need to think about at this point. I don't have a comment about that. I think this is kind of a thought bubble for later on. I don't know if I've mentioned it, but this is my last year. And
Don't remind me.
it strikes me going forward as the models are financial, the chair and I chatted briefly about this yesterday, as the financial approach is likely to change. It strikes me that we probably need to have some priority lists that are going on generally earlier throughout the year of dollars that we can spend rapidly, dollars that we can do with one-time monies, and dollars we can do should we find ourselves in, I don't know, unexpected, I don't know where the money would, the money tree would fall, I don't know, grants, unexpected, I mean, you've always done a brilliant job with that. That is not at all a critique, but there seems to be a different rhythm coming. And it strikes me that we might all benefit from that conversation perhaps throughout the year, especially in the spring, in late spring.
Yep.
So that's just a thought bubble, but thank you for this.
Ms. Watkins or Ms. Trigg?
Have any comments? Thank you.
I have a couple. The ongoing costs for the renting the modulars, do we have kind of a ballpark of what that amount is?
It is less than the 4.5 million because that does include some one-time costs for getting them installed and that sort of thing. But I don't have an exact number, but I do know it's not significantly less than 4.5,
Oh,
unfortunately.
really?
So,
1.5?
I thought it was like one.
And that's annually?
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
And
I was surprised at the annual because their rental costs and that sort of thing.
Okay, so it's
So-
not increased in utilities or the fact that they're less energy efficient, it's rent.
Yes, I mean, I think all of that is combined.
Yeah, I'm
Yes,
sure those are
the
true
rent-
too, but
Yes.
that's not driving, it's not significantly less than 4.5 million. It's
Correct.
rent, okay.
And then, this is probably a silly question to ask, because I think we keep checking to see if they know what their, what money they have left over, but is the city fully aware, have we made them fully aware that we plan to apply for the true-up?
I have not had conversations specifically to that. The process is spelled out in the policy, so, but I have not talked to the finance director over there specifically about our intent.
I would say that it'd probably be a good idea to just make them aware that if there is anything, we plan to apply, because I don't want, I would hate for anyone at the city to think that we're making it work, and we are. We're doing an amazing job of making it work with doing with what we can with what we have. But I would like us to be crystal clear that if there's any change under the couch cushions, we're gonna ask for it. And I don't know when is the appropriate time to say that, but I think it's important for them to know that we have some needs, and not just rely on them watching this or our summary reports that we send them, but just being plain and specific about, we'd like to apply. Not that it's gonna change
that's a
their
good point.
timeline. Yeah, not that it's
You
gonna
made
change
me, you made me
their
think. I've
timeline.
had some conversations certainly back and forth with my colleague and counterpart over at the cities, but I'm not sure I've put it as straightforward as you just suggested. So I
Yeah.
can certainly do that.
I feel like we should. And, yeah,
I think that we may have spoken with our council buddies about this months ago, actually.
And I'll say, I have spoken with the mayor, and, just about the process, so we just haven't just really discussed timing. So I think it'd be fine, like, that this is about the time when we all expected to know the number, that it's, we can
Point still well
discuss,
taken.
initiating conversation about how we do our application. But I concur that my understanding is that, the mayor, for example, is aware that we will be applying for true-up funds, so.
So maybe it's just there.
yeah,
So,
but
still a good
if
point.
yeah, you and your financial counterpart,
Yeah.
sometimes that information doesn't really trickle down as far as it needs to go.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Just let her know.
Very good recommendation. Thank you.
No problem. And then this is probably a question for the folks on our joint budget committee. When I'm thinking about what you just said, Dr. Jameson, about thinking differently about our finances. Do we think that we might think about our debt service and if that could help us at all with, making changes in that direction to help us at all with some of the stuff? If we could come to that agreement, like mentioning it as part of the strategy.
I certainly hope that after September 29th, we have a better sense of what is actually possible and on the table. But for sure, I think from our perspective, that's an important piece of the puzzle to discuss.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Watkins. And Mr. Cherry?
Yeah, no, I think my colleagues made some great comments. And again, there really is no specific appropriate time when it comes to our kids. I mean, every minute is appropriate. So I just wanted to kind of just reaffirm the comments that have been made already. So thank you for this information.
And I appreciate Ms. Watkins asking about the ongoing costs of the trailers or the learning cottages. I would be interested in knowing what that number really is, because we would be enlisting that cost in a budget that we already know is going to have an increase in healthcare costs. So I would be curious about how close to 4.5 that dollar amount is. I know we're going to be talking about student data in a little bit. Something I wanted to throw out there that I just had just had this thought while we were discussing this is, we know that the true up, those monies are non-sustainable. They're not something that we count on. It was unanticipated, not projected revenue. And, I know we shy away from, say, spending funds that are not sustainable on staff or whatnot, but I just want to throw out there that maybe in future years, something we should consider is, if we see, based on what our student needs are in the division, that we want to make a big push in a particular direction, say graduation rate, reading scores, something like that, maybe it might be worth a non-sustainable cost to say, kind of like the all-in tutoring. The state did a 2-year push to try to get tutors in the classroom to help, like, with the effects of COVID. So just a thought, we would say, this is not a sustainable cost. This is not a sustainable program. But there might come a day that there is something that would be worth saying, let's put our chips in here and see what we can do with it in a year. So Just a thought, because we talk a lot about the capital expenses. But thank you for that information. And again, we'll just look forward to a further update on October 14th.
Sounds good. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Jackson. I'll now ask our Constituent Services and Government Relations Officer, Dr. Siebert, to come forward to provide an update and receive your feedback on our draft legislative priorities. These will be presented for adoption at your October 14th meeting.
Well, thank you and good evening, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the board, Dr. White, student reps. I appreciate this opportunity. I also want to start with just a thank you to the team. Advocacy is often about ideas, but to implement ideas, you have to have expertise. So you'll hear as I talk about some of these topics tonight where operations, academics, assessment, all the finance have all been involved and continue to be involved as we do our work moving forward. Also, at the end, I'll invite Dr. White, Board Chair Apel, and Board Member Trigg to elaborate as they participate in the meeting. So the Superintendent's Policy Government Legislative Committee meeting was on September 17th, and we had an opportunity to go over these draft priorities that have before you. And so we would like to share them tonight, get some feedback, and have something ready for you to adopt at October 14th. Also along the way, the committee is continuing to work with the City Legislative Committee to make sure they're working with them, and I'll elaborate that here in just a moment. But if you could look at your handout, legislative priorities for the 2026 General Assembly, you have 6 priorities for your consideration. Our number one continues to be, as it has remained, local control. And the local control was, seems kind of brief, but is profoundly powerful. Last year, the General Assembly had like 3,000 pieces of legislation, 900 bills passed, hundreds of them in education. And a lot of them are good ideas, but good ideas add up. So we often find ourselves going to the podium and saying, that might be a good idea in Loudon, that might be a good idea in Fredericksburg, but we don't support it. Because let our own board decide if it's a good idea and do it if they won't. Don't mandate it, So we really work hard on the local control piece. Also, based on the committee meeting, I do think we have the opportunity, Ms. Apel, to throw in being more explicit about unfunded mandates, because I think in a time of economic scarcity, the General Assembly generally likes to push ideas without money. So I do think that's something I thought was here, but I think we can lift up more explicitly. School safety and security, this is obviously where operations comes in, and this is also where you have a point of connection with the city's legislative committee. The city's legislative plan includes asking for the VML-VACO effort the past several years to have a 1% local option of sales tax for school construction. And this would be although that would be a city funding thing as our appropriating body, this would be our opportunity to say, yes, we need secure environments and we need to modernize our facilities. We could stand up and support that as well. Under commitment to serving all students, we've done great work in recent years with career technical education, also with our English learners, and this is always a very broad topic to make sure we can talk about every one of our students that we serve and all our student groups. But we are excited this year. Our CTE staff has a really good idea. Last year, the General Assembly provided some age flexibility for barber and cosmetology. Our question is, well, let's just make that age flexibility for all our work-based learning experiences. And so that's a position paper that we're working on and are excited about. Governance and budget, obviously, we rely very heavily on our CFO and her team for this. This will be important because we do expect that in the past biennium, from the JLARC study, they talked about the low-hanging fruit. How can we do English learners? How can we do special ed? Those things they've worked on. So we think this time they will be coming back to talk about student-weighted funding formula. We're not opposed to student-weighted funding formula. We just think that any sea change like that needs to be done thoughtfully and carefully and looking for all the unintended consequences. So that's something we will follow closely. But chief among that is we want to continue to maintain, especially for our part of the Commonwealth, the local composite index is a hugely important factor that even JLARC said was a decent weight to talk about a locality's capacity to pay. So if there's a state change in funding, we're going to be one advocating that type of factor continues to remain. Employee compensation, again, to CFO Jackson and her team, she's updated that next to the last sentence. I encourage you to look at it. Today, our CPS teachers entering the profession have $3,082 less in purchasing power than their counterparts did 15 years ago. So as a profession, those who serve in our profession are going backwards in their purchasing capacity when you take inflation, in spite of, again, efforts to raise. And so this is important because our employees look to you and to the team like for compensation improvements, but we are significantly reliant on the Commonwealth for that. And so we need to keep lifting that up. The other thing we have built in there a little higher in that element is the fact that Northern Virginia salaries really skew the conversation. You'll hear at your VSBA conference how Virginia teacher salaries lag the nation. Well, they're actually skewed by Northern Virginia because there's so many teachers in Northern Virginia and they're paid so much more. If you really look at regions 5, 6, and 7, our teacher compensation is even worse nationally compared. So it's important to bear that in mind. And again, people say, well, the cost of living is higher in Northern Virginia. Yes, but I would also say the cost of living here is not $3,000 less than it was 15 years ago. So we really need to continue to focus on our employee compensation. But a really big area this coming year, and so we'll have individual position papers on some of these topics, but really have enjoyed working with academics and the assessment team on a number of position papers related to assessment accountability and modernization. Last year, the state budget had dollars in to hire a consultant to do an RFP for new assessments. So we expect that's going to be a window of opportunity that we want to bring our experience and expertise to bear to help improve that. First of all, to help improve the assessments that we use, and then when you have better assessments, we can then turn to how we can improve the school accountability system. So just some things to look forward to as we get ready for your November 25th Take Your Legislative School Month event that we really appreciate William Fleming High School for hosting. We expect to have a position paper on taking community builders to the next level, making us a demonstration site for that for the Commonwealth. Again, I talked about work-based learning opportunities, employee compensation, a number of things on assessment modernization. We also be very strong about unfunded mandates, and there's code legislation about an organization we work with, the Western Virginia Public Education Consortium, and we'd like to see that modernized as well. So those are the 6 areas that we would ask you to adopt. You have for a number of years now then empowered the superintendent to supervise the development of position papers that implement those things. And we'll have some of those in advance, but also the other thing the General Assembly likes about RCPS is how we can be very quickly responsive. And so where we can, here comes a bill about air quality, we can reach out to Mr. Perkins and Mr. Shawver, turn around some data and get them local impact costs in short order. And so you empowering the superintendent and her team to do those position papers is very helpful. So that's the first read. Certainly welcome feedback between now and your meeting, but I also want to invite Dr. White, Board Chair Appel, and Board Member Trigg to elaborate on the committee meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Siebert. Does anyone on the board have any comments or questions?
Thank you so much.
Yes. I'm enjoying being on this committee. So although Dr. Siebert just runs circles around everybody until he literally runs circles, enrichment.
If I might add, I think it was
Yes.
very interesting how about inflation going backwards as far as our compensation. So it's definitely something we need to keep our eye on, our finger on the pulse, because we have done we've done an amazing job with making sure that our teachers are paid competitively. So definitely need to just keep our finger on the pulse there. I appreciate this information.
And Mr. Chair, I think that's a great point that, RCPS has been put tremendous resources and effort into that, but that the marker in the sand keeps moving.
Yeah.
And so it's, we got to know what the stake is and how we're progressing toward it.
Thank you, Dr. Siebert, and thank you for keeping your finger on the pulse of all that's going on and for your advocacy. And thank you to the board for your advocacy as well. That last item in particular, all of the items are important, but that item related to the assessments and the accountability system is critically important, particularly as the state board is taking up the matter of raising cut scores. Our advocacy is also that the assessments would be modernized. It's not just about raising the bar, but it's about the alignment of the assessments with instruction and with standards. And so we just want to make sure that we're not necessarily moving the goalpost in the middle of the game. So we want to continue. We will always advocate for high standards and for raising the bar and making sure that we have accountability. We are holding ourselves accountable as well. But we want a process, and we're advocating for a process that is fair for our students, that won't have an adverse effect, particularly on our seniors and our high school students who have a certain expectation right now. So I just thank the board for your advocacy and your support, particularly with this item. So thank you. So moving on to the next item, I would like now to invite our academics and our instructional teams to provide a summary of our annual student performance data report. Tonight's presentation will show highlights as well as some areas for improvement, what we call our glows and grows in the classroom, that's what we call them. And so based on data from the 2024-2025 school year, and so I will ask our chiefs, Mr. Archie Freeman, as well as Dr. Cindy Williams and Dr. Jonathan Schultz. I see him back there. Melissa, I see you back there as well. I'll ask our teams to come forward to give you a highlight of our presentation so far. So, Mr. Freeman.
Thank you, Dr. White. Good evening, Madam Chair Apel, Vice Chairman Cherry, members of the board, Dr. White, and student representatives on tonight. As we prepare to give you the update on the student achievement, you will hear tonight some information from Dr. Schultz and his team, Melissa, regarding new state accountability system reminder. Just a little bit, we want to take you back through some things that we shared with you before for the Virginia School Performance and Support Framework of this state on-time graduation rate, the Standards of Learning Assessment Data Review, chronic absenteeism, and student discipline. At this time, Dr. Schultz is coming to share some information, and then we will go through our PowerPoint presentation also with Dr. Williams and myself.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Good evening. Get us to get started. Okay. As Mr. Freeman said, those are the list of topics that we'll have for this evening. My job tonight is to give you a reminder of the new Virginia School Performance and Support Framework. As you know, we've been talking to you about this over the previous year. We have a new accountability system coming into place this year from the Department of Education. It is we're still waiting on the final data to be released. We expect it shortly in the coming weeks. But just wanted to make sure that we had a chance to remind you and the public of how the new system is going to work. So each school in Virginia is going to have a score in one of these performance categories, basically a number between, a number up to roughly up to 100 that kind of puts them in a category. The 4 categories are going to be distinguished, on track, off track, and needs intensive support. I do want to remind you that the system has been billed as a simpler system that's easier to understand. But as we've done in some of our work together, you've seen that it is actually a fairly complicated system that is, while on the surface appears simple, that it's easy to say this is a number that represents a school, that in fact it's actually more detailed and more complex underneath. So I do want to point out a couple of those pieces. So one of the first things to keep in mind as we think about with the framework is that elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools are all going to be evaluated slightly differently, right? So we have different weighting and different sections for each of the levels. So as you can see in elementary and middle school, you can see mastery, growth, and readiness, but slightly different proportions for each of those sections. And then at high school, you could see the introduction of the graduation piece sort of in lieu of the growth piece. And then to help identify the complexities of the system, if you look into what is included in each of the levels, you can see the different pieces. So the growth component, the mastery component at each level, you can see is essentially made up of your SOL scores, which includes your VAP scores in reading, math, and science, but also includes English language proficiency for all of our English learner students, which we know is a large population and continues to grow for Roanoke City schools. That is a positive piece of the new system in terms of making language acquisition a key priority for schools and incentivizing that. So that is a benefit of the new system for sure. But in addition, you can see the growth component. The growth component is one of the more challenging aspects of the new system because it's completely a black box. We can't project or see what the growth looks like because of the way that it's worked for the state this year. So essentially, where a student is projected to grow or what their expected growth is can't be determined until after all the SWL testing is done. It's sent off to a company in North Carolina. They run the details, and it kind of comes back. So we haven't seen that, and it does represent, it does represent a large percentage of the growth piece, but we are expecting that information in the coming weeks. And then you can see from the readiness side, the focus on chronic absenteeism as kind of the main piece. Advanced coursework in middle school, so that's kind of an incentive to make sure that we are pushing our advanced kids and giving them the opportunity to take those high school classes. And then in high school, you can see the 3E framework, which we've talked to you about previously, which is the focus on employment, enrollment, and enlistment as making sure that kids have a pathway to post-secondary readiness and success. So as I said, this information was slated to come out by the end of September is what we've heard, but school divisions were supposed to be able to see it at least a week before that. And so that would be today, before the end of September. So we're anticipating a delay beyond the end of September. But as that information continues to roll in, we will update you on those pieces
And
as well.
Dr. Schultz, the growth measure is expected to change for the.
That is correct. So the growth measure currently is based on VIVAS, which was a system that had been funded, but that has not been funded in this year's budget. So the Department of Education is in the middle of determining a new way to calculate growth in the coming years. So that is a bit of an uncertainty. So the thing that was the biggest uncertainty has gotten more uncertain.
Can I ask a question also about growth since we're on it? And I don't mean to go out of order, but is also some of the difficulty with growth due to the fact that they have new standards and new assessments? So they.
To a certain extent, the problem, well, my opinion about the issue with the growth is that that we're trying to do a norm reference process with a criterion reference test. And so we have to look backward, after the testing happens, we have to look backward at how kids did and then say, well, this is how everybody else did, so this is how you should have done. That, to me, is the fundamental issue.
I'll save my comments for later. Sorry.
So, may I ask one more quick question? So did I just hear that, so we're kind of new at measuring growth at the state level using one system?
We're only going to do it one time.
Yes.
But that's not how we create baselines, right? I mean, I know that I'm not a statistician, but that seems a little off, right?
Yes.
I wouldn't want to be the people that have to figure out how to fix that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Sorry to interrupt your presentation.
I appreciate that, and that
But
is
yes.
where we were kind of
These are
aiming.
fundamental questions. These are good questions. Because, again, I do think that there was I think there was good intention behind the development of a system that was supposed to be, meant to be transparent and simple, but it really is not. And so as you can see even here on the screen, all of the various complexities. So at the elementary level, even the various percentages, 65, 35, 10 at the elementary level, and then you get into, 60, 20, 20, and then
It gets very confusing.
35, 15, whatever. And so it becomes very complicated. And so that's what we've been working with our principals on to try to understand. And in the midst of all this, and again, I don't want this to come across as excuses because they're not. These are just facts of what we've had to absorb. New English language arts standards, new math standards. I'm pressed, and I'm sure, I don't want to take okay, I'm stealing the team's thunder. I'm going to stop talking now. I can barely talk anyway with this cold that I have, but I'm going to stop talking now. But it is important for the sake of context for us to really understand what's at hand at this point in time. So, Dr. Schultz, I'm sorry.
And, yeah, and I just, since I know, like the presentation's available online, so you could scoot forward. I know we're going to talk about the particulars to our division, but I just want to clarify one thing too. This is important when we get because we don't have our school scores yet. When something is based off like normed percents, that means, is every school eligible to get full growth, to get a 100? Because that is a concern. Like, ideally, those of us in education want every school every student to have mastery and growth. But my question is it even possible for every division to show max growth?
Can't have a
Based on
normal
this stat.
distribution if you don't have a deviation from the mean.
Well, that's what I just
these
wanted
are-
to clarify that part of this formula, not everyone could max out. Is that, so that's my understanding and your understanding
I
too.
think that was.
That's a question I'd like to see answered from, as we
Okay.
get to, as the numbers are released.
Got it.
I do
Okay,
have one
sorry
more
to interrupt
question
that
about
part.
this. No, I'm interrupting. I'm sorry, I'm having a hissy fit. So just so I'm clear, so these, and thank you for the explanation. These outcomes are going to matter because they will impact all school divisions' accreditation?
So the separation this year is, and what they've tried to do, and again, I do want to be clear that there are multiple positives that are coming out of the new system.
Yes.
It is
Sure.
it is the lack of clarity and some of the black box aspects of it that are among other concerns, but those are to me some of the biggest concerns of just not knowing, everybody doesn't know exactly the target at the moment. I'm sorry, would you repeat that?
The significance of the outcomes of these measures is because,
Every school in Virginia is going to have a label placed on it in the coming weeks that says they are distinguished, on track, off track, or needs intensive support, and that's going to have repercussions.
and if we need intensive support, that affects us because they then,
Well, it would be an intensive support from the state, which
sounds suspiciously like state takeover.
I don't think that may be.
We're short of
yeah,
that?
Well, we're not sure, but I don't. Yeah.
You're doing
I
a
would-
great
I would
job. I'm
stop.
being difficult.
I would stop a
Let's
little
be
short.
clear.
I would stop a little short of state takeover.
So I'm gonna note that as a question of what happens after we get a score. We know we'll get scores. We're gonna talk a little bit about data,
Right,
but after we
right.
get scores, then what?
one-
Aside from informing us
One thing
on
that
our
the board, one
students
thing
and
that the state board is
performance.
talking about is actually starting to match funding to those categories. So potentially,
There's where I'm trying to
Yeah.
get, because I think this conversation actually, and it's very helpful, really matters around these growth scores, because you're telling me, you're not saying, I'm interpreting this in many ways, not the least of which is 25 and 20% of our scores are going to have meaningless baselines. And therefore, that is beyond our control of measuring impacts that could lead to budget consequences. And that seems like it lends really big importance to the legislative priorities that we just heard. So I think
Yeah.
that's the dots I was trying to connect, and thank you for your help with that.
Okay, sorry. Dr.
no, that's great, thank you. All right.
And again, it's such an important conversation because even when we receive that information about on track versus off track, right? And distinguished and intensive support, what I don't think we will know is the trajectory, right? Of whether or not, so let's say if a school is just above the line when it comes to being on track. We don't know if that school, based on that, the data that we'll see, will be on track because they're moving in the right direction, or they're moving in the wrong direction, right? Or off track, maybe it's labeled as off track, but have they made growth all along, right? And then you see that trajectory, maybe they're just below. But will it show that they're really on the trajectory moving forward, or are they moving in the wrong direction? So again, with tweaks and adjustments, we believe are still in order to make the system better. And hopefully, again, with our work and our advocacy and our support, that we can work with the state board and with the Virginia Department of Education, again, to make the system even better. And we're really hoping for more the alignment and modernization of assessments. But I know we're holding.
It'll be interesting, well, it'll be interesting to see at the state board meeting as they, with the proposal to raise the cut scores without having seen the impact of the new system first, to see already what is the baseline for how many schools are off track already, or how that's playing out. So, all right, so I'll pass it out to Mr. Freeman. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Dr. Schultz.
Good evening once again. My task this evening is to talk a little bit about our graduation rate. But I want to make sure that we go back and examine something. I know that the slide before mentioned the federal graduation indicator as part of the new support framework, but we always have a conversation, and Dr. Jameson reminded us yesterday about on-time graduation. So on-time graduation is your 4-year cohort. That means I started as a freshman and I'm graduating with my 4 years. That's a cohort on-time graduation. So I want to make sure, and for those that are maybe watching and viewing by YouTube, know the definition and the distinction. And I want us to go back and think for just a moment. Fall 2021, and everybody probably can't remember what you did last year, but fall 2021 was still, we were faced with some of the disruptions from the foundational years due to COVID-19. So this class started in fall 2021 as the first class back in the building for no hybrid. Of course, we still had, and I'm sure Dr. Poland can attest to this, a lot of people that wanted to be on virtual, but virtual was not a complete option at that time for us to be there. So all the students were back in the building. And I say that because we're not making excuses, and Dr. White said that earlier, we're still making adjustments. So when we look at our data and you look at the chart, you will see that our graduation rate did drop, but we still remain in the 80s, almost up to the 85%, but you will see that it's there to 84.3. But when you're looking at the increase, there are some increases in some of the reporting groups. But see, we also know we have some work to do in some of the other reporting groups. So we're still looking at what we can do better, but I will tell you that in the past few years, we've been working more with our cohort graduation meetings. And in our meetings, those students are going one by one, seeing what needs the students need, whether it still be at this home-based school, whether it be an alternative education, or whether we need to consider looking at other options, even after school, before school. Some have done some Play-Doh courses and even had some opportunities to do some work on some Saturdays. So we continuously want to make sure we address our students' needs. And then, like I said, as you can see, you will see that the numbers in some reporting groups have went up, while we still have some challenges in the other reporting groups. I will tell you, moving forward, we've already started meeting. Normally it's once in 9 weeks, and usually it's towards the end of the first 9 weeks, but we've already had our cohort meeting at Patrick Henry High School, and tomorrow is the cohort meeting at William Fleming High School. So we're starting early to identify our students so we can work with those families, work with the counselors, work with the principals, and also work with our students to make sure we meet their needs, whether it be, like I said, at their base school or an alternative school. Dr. Williams is going to talk a little bit about our SOL assessments, and then I'll come back and speak a little bit about our chronic absenteeism and our discipline.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Tonight I want to highlight some of our data related to our SOL pass rates. But first, I want to reiterate the fact that we had new English as standards and new math standards. And in all the years I've been working in Virginia Public Schools, we've never had 2 content area standards new in 1 year. That is a heavy lift. When we have new standards, teachers have to align their lessons, they have to align their instructional strategies, they have to align their assessments. So it's a huge lift. So we're proud of our teachers for the work that they've done and for our students. If you look at the scores and we look at our math SOL tests, we actually gave 9 different tests, and we made improvements in 8 of those 9 tests and held steady on the other. And a huge shout out to our 3rd graders because they made an 8-point gain, first time they took an SOL test, and with new standards that were more rigorous. Also, a huge shout out to our Algebra 2 students that made a 10-point gain. It's wonderful. Yes. Look at reading, we gave 7 SOL tests, and we made improvements in all 7 tests. Shout out to our 4th graders that made a 3-point gain, and to our 7th graders that made a 7-point gain. So as you can see, we have continual improvement. We're moving forward. We're not where we want to be. We know we have room to grow in all our areas. So we're pushing forward. Our division team is supporting our school teams. We're proud of our students, our teachers, and our school teams pulling together. Okay?
Thank you. What would you say, if you could say there was a number 1 impact to these, to the change in scores? What would you attribute that to?
I would say that our teachers are intentionally focused on serving students, meeting our students where they are, knowing them by name and need, So we try to make sure that we work together collaboratively. We've tried to build PLCs and instructional leadership teams in the schools because we know we're stronger together. The other bright spot in this is that we like to find the expertise in our division. We have amazing teachers that do great things every day, so we find bright spots and we share. So we share in our gifts and our talents.
Thank you.
I'd like to weigh in on that as well, because you're not going to, I mean, our team, they're very humble, and so you're not going to hear this from them, so I'll share. And that is the intentionality behind the curriculum and instruction teams. Leadership matters. And so I just want to say hats off to our curriculum instruction teams, as well as to our principals, our school-based leadership teams, and our teachers, our teacher leaders. Leadership matters. And the intentionality, if you look at our organizational structure, and the focus on high-quality content, as well as highly effective instruction, and the willingness of our teachers to engage in these conversations, to diagnose instruction, and for continuous improvement, to get down to the level of detail when it comes to the enduring learning in the classroom, the engagement of our students, that's all led by our curriculum instruction teams, about really what's happening in the classroom, how engaged are our students, look at the alignment of the instruction, as well as the formative assessments and planning for the next steps. That is due, the reason why we see mostly green on this chart is because of that intentionality. So I just wanted to say hats off.
Thank you.
Thank you. We know that if we're going to serve our students, they need to be with us every day. We want every child with us every day. So I'm going to kind of turn it over to Mr. Freeman to talk about attendance.
I believe Dr. Williamson said it best. Every day we need our students in the classroom. So for those that are listening, I'm going to go and put another plug in for our parents, that we need to have students in school every day. I know that we need to make some clarity here about absences. Absences, excused or unexcused, always count against chronic absenteeism, including suspension. I want to make sure, and I wanted the public to hear that. I know that we bring in our doctors and notes and we be unexcused, but it's still part of chronic absenteeism. We need to make sure our students are in the school every day. But we do not want sick students at school, though. We do not want them, so we got to be very careful. The difference will be, and I know what you're probably going to ask me, Mr. Link, as for court truancy papers is different.
No, that wasn't what I was going to ask. Can I ask it now?
Yes.
Who determines that an excused absence, like going to the doctor, counts against chronic absenteeism?
Yeah.
Would you like to go back a few slides? I think we can address that.
Like,
No.
hold on.
Just a number, 10 days.
Right, it's
Actually,
any,
Is it, or?
It's 18.
18,
It's
okay.
10% of 180
Oh, we
days.
do,
It's-
we do letters at 5 and 10.
it's any absence. It's, excused or unexcused, according to the state, correct? And so it doesn't, if a child has Lyme disease, if a child has a death in the family, if a family goes on vacation, if a child is suspended, if a child has the flu, all of those things, even though it's an excused absence, it counts against us.
Child is touring colleges.
Or any absence, every absence counts against the school.
We agree. Yeah, I read your lips. But just to show you some information here, though, while we do see a lot of green, we do see a lot of red, too. We still got some improvements we have to make. You will see that we worked on the improvements definitely at the secondary level. Not too much more change at the high school, but just a little bit. We still know those numbers are high. It's not where we want it to be. We got to make sure we get that down. But I got to speak a little bit about the student support specialists. And the reason why is because the student support specialists are working to conduct meetings and to address patterns earlier this year with absences. We've had to actually have an opportunity to meet with our court judges regarding truancy. And in that meeting, we discussed how we can make sure we're working collaborative together to ensure that we're getting students in front of the judges earlier to address that absenteeism. And of course, we're always going to continue to send out our updated student letters so that way parents are aware, making those daily phone calls. If your student has been absent, you probably received a call too. We try to make sure our tardy calls are going out every day to ensure that our parents are notified. We want them engaged. I also want to contribute back to not only our student support specialists, but the teams at the schools. Dr. White said it best. We're going to have to make sure we congratulate our principals because they are working to address that attendance piece, even with attendance incentives. And I like it because I'll give you an example at PH. They've got it incorporated not only with just the attendance, but they also got it incorporated with your badge. Make sure you got your student ID badge to go to different activities and even giving some to parties sometimes and doing the bridge class as rewards. So it's things that are happening to address that student attendance to make sure they want to be at school too and see that they're being recognized for that. I believe there was a question.
Yeah. So I have a question about the chronic absenteeism rates. Do we have any data regarding what classes are missed the most, like core classes or electives?
That would be for high school, you're asking probably, because it's block attendance?
Yes, sir.
Well, now, we don't have the information at our fingertips, but we can get it for you. We can work on getting that information. Absolutely. That's an excellent question.
Like, they make sure they get to Algebra 1, but, got it.
Or either they're getting to the day tech or rotate class and maybe not making it to Algebra 1.
It sounds like, yeah.
That's really got me engaged. That is a great question. We'll work on that. So as we look at our overall, something to celebrate here, I know you're wondering, well, if we got the students in school, we're decreasing our suspension rates. If you will look at the information before you, you will see a lot of things that are taking place. This is something to celebrate over the last few years. I mean, it's been a long time since we've had a decrease of 23.89% in suspension days.
Round that up
Yes.
to 20, round that up to 25.
That's significant. No matter like what data set you're looking at, that's significant.
Round that up to
Yeah.
25.
Again, I have to contribute it to the things that are happening inside of our buildings. I know for a fact we have student reentry meetings now. That means that when someone is out on OSS, when they come back, they meet with the principal or meet with somebody from the administrative team, have things put in place about the expectations, why the behavior had taken place and not to have that behavior again. Also the counselors, I got to give a big shout out to our school counselors. They are working extremely hard to get to know their students and be in front of situations and be proactive to addressing things. Also, our principals are working with our central office communication. They speak with everyone they can get their hands on, which we don't mind it. We want to help them. Is it something we can share to shoulder and collaborate and walk them through situations? I always pick with Dr. Wimbush because I believe her phone, she's on it early sometimes and late sometimes. And she said, well, let's run this idea. Let's see what we can do. So our principals are really thinking outside the box to ensure our students have every opportunity to be inside of the classroom. And we have restorative practices and know those conversations that are taking place in circles and mediation, not only with students, even with adults, because we want to see what we can do to keep our students inside of our buildings in order to be educated. But most importantly, along the lines of all that, we have to keep the family engaged. So we have that family communication, being proactive as well as reactive. I have to give a shout out to Woodrow. They do positive phone calls every day.
That's awesome.
Positive phone calls. So, you pick up the phone and you think, okay, what if my child done now? But no, actually they're positive and the parents are loving it. That's a way of getting the family still to be more engaged in it. So our principals are working hard along with the teams here at Central Office to think outside the box. So this is to be celebrated. We are moving in the right direction. We still have a lot of work to do. And we're going to continue to make adjustments and not make excuses.
And this goes a long way towards school safety also.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So thank you. Thank all of you.
Many times you hear me saying that it's happening when it comes to construction, but now we're saying that for instruction, it's happening. We have some work to do, we know that, and don't shy away from it. But it's happening, and that's off to the team. But we'll take any questions that you might have at this time.
Ms. Trigg, do you have any questions or comments for the team?
I don't. I do have a comment, though. Definitely congratulations, and congratulations to those schools that I saw with the higher numbers. I'd love to know if they are able or if some of the principals are asking what's working for you, like how did you get your numbers up so high, and they sharing those best practices, I think that is a great opportunity for them, and I'm sure you're going to tell me that you are doing it.
Well, and it's interesting, and the whole team probably said, we actually shift this past week for something we recognize for our principals meeting. We had a nice planned out agenda the day before the agenda got blown up. So that way we could work on what did our principals need and have that time to have that collaboration. So we try to embed that in each time we do a principals meeting. So yes, that, and our principals are very connected. There's text messages that go sometimes late at night, but they're always talking to see what they can gain from someone else. We have that collaboration.
That's
That's
wonderful.
good. Like Dr. White said, leadership matters. So if they're learning different opportunities from each other and growing with each other, then it has no choice but to trickle down. So I like that. Thank you.
Ms. Watkins? Oh, Ms. Watkins? You're good. All right. Mr. Lopez Ortiz, any other questions or comments?
No questions or comments.
Thank you, Mr. Link.
I'm curious, and this may be a question more for Dr. Williams. So I see a lot of positive, good things to feel good about on the SOL scores. Some things that we want to keep working on the graduation rate. The SOLs are in, and I might be picking up some of Dr. Jameson's habits, but the SOLs are something of like a third-party yardstick that we're measuring ourselves by. I'm curious at the disconnect between we're getting better at our SOL scores and we're losing ground on graduation rates.
Well,
We got all three of them.
And I don't know if that's necessarily, it's something that the SOLs aren't capturing
Well,
yet.
I would just point out that the graduation model is a cohort model, and so those SOL scores were baked in 3 or 4 years ago for those kids.
Okay.
So we'll see the benefits of those high school graduation increases in 2 or 3 years.
We got to pick up 4 years of those SOL that improve that progress for it then to show up in the graduation rate. Okay, that makes sense.
Which does demonstrate the importance in education of keeping things consistent to let our kids actually experience the impact of programming and initiatives or the detriment of changing too quickly, in my opinion. But
Thank you.
anything else, Mr. Link?
I'll shut up.
Dr. Jameson?
I have just a couple of questions. I don't think what is the difference between out-of-school suspensions and OSS suspension days?
How severe the infraction was. So how many times, so 3 kids suspended for 3 days versus 1 kid for 4, it's the number of days.
Number of incidents
number of
versus
times,
duration.
Number of times the student was suspended and the number of days that were included in the suspension.
Okay, so one
we tried
is-
to parse that so we could see the severity.
I see. So incidents versus number of days total. Okay, thank you. Okay, that helps. And then also, earlier, there was when we were looking at the rates of our cohorts, I think it was graduation. Here's my question. Do our EL students double count in some of the other categories that would have been above it if they fit in some of those other categories? So it was like if we can go back, I don't know, 3 or 4 slides. Was it? Yes,
Right
this
there,
one.
yeah.
Yeah, our English learners, and the reason I'm asking, because I know that there's a lot of really tough requirements surrounding our EL learners and how they count and where they count and that sort of thing. I'm wondering if our EL learners might also would they also show up in a different student group? Are they separate?
Yeah, they would. But by definition, you would be, everybody's in a race,
Sure.
race reporting group.
An identity group, and then this would also be a cohort. I'm curious because looking at some of the changes in numbers, if we're looking at, we know about some of the work that we've had and the changes in terms of that. And I guess the last thing, thank you, I just wanted to double check that in my head. And I guess just the last thing, this, along with everybody else, thanking you for the work, but also, you were speaking to this. We also put in new systems for teaching. I mean, new textbooks, so there's new standards, and also we asked everybody to change the way they teach. And look, this is going to be a rough year in terms of the evaluations of our scores, but the direction means that we made the right decision last year. So I would like to applaud you all for it, because that was an innovation, and with innovation comes risk. And we're not going to be done digging out of COVID impacts for quite some time. So
So I just want to thank the board for your support, because like you said, we had some new things last year, some new initiatives. We went to an online plan book. We did that so teachers could collaborate within schools, but also across schools and across the division. So that was huge. So it was a learning curve, and it took time, but we're seeing the benefits now. We also went to a assessment platform for benchmarking to kind of check in every 9 weeks and see how we need to support students. That was a heavy lift. The good thing is, I was telling Dr. White today, we are in a good place right now. We're in the learning walks, and the energy in the school and the rigor in the instruction is wonderful. Like, we're in such a better place moving forward, and we just want to thank you for supporting us when we wanted to make some shifts and adjustments.
And the amount, as hearing you say all that, the amount of work and time and effort put in by everybody on this front is to be applauded and thanked. So thank you for all your hard work on all of this.
Thank you, Dr. Jameson. Mr. Cherry?
I echo my colleagues, awesome job, and I have a third grader at home who is excited about taking tests. So, yeah. So, so I can definitely see that what we're doing is working just because of the changes I see in my girls. They're excited to go to school. We just had a back to school night at Highland Park. Go Hawks. And, to see the spark in my daughter's eyes that I have not seen, and you all know, so, to see that spark and that she's actually helping her classmates and helping her teacher and excited to learn, it shows that the work that we're doing, it does matter and it is working. It doesn't happen overnight, but it is happening. So I think we just need to acknowledge that. And again, I appreciate you all, not just from a board level, but on a personal level, on a parent level. Thank you. And definitely looking forward to seeing the continued improvement.
Thank you, Mr. Cherry. Can you go to the last slide about the discipline? I'm going to kind of go backwards through the presentation. So here, I want to note a couple things. First, I knew those numbers were going to be that good because I was on curriculum and instruction. We had preview last year, not anymore, but we had a preview that the numbers were going to be about 25% dip, and that's held through the year. And I'd be curious to know how cell phones have impacted that as well. Good first-tier engaging instruction also improves discipline across the board. So that is evidence of both of those. But I also know from last year that this year, we can benchmark how we're doing and how we're progressing with cell phone incidents, because last year was our first benchmark where we had a set policy about cell phones and how we dealt with them. So that's something we can continue to watch, if our cell phone incidents also go down. But with this slide, I also want to point out, some people might say, oh, if you use restorative discipline, it's not enough discipline, or it's not strong enough, or it might skew your numbers. You might not have as much out-of-school suspension because you're doing restorative circles or something like that instead. But I wanted to point out with this. So that's something I wanted to look at for us. Do we have less suspensions because we're just being softer, or is it making a difference? And the pure number of incidents went down, and the incidents per 100 students, so that means across all of our schools and such, also went down. So regardless of the discipline that then follows, there's an impact with respect to discipline. So those are things that I kind of keyed in on, and I wanted to note for those, who might be paying attention. So back a slide, please. So with respect to our attendance, I think, as we said, attendance is key to learning. And so I really want to applaud some schools that made big gains, or but also note that what I loved hearing was that our principals and schools are collaborative so they can share across. So for example, Lincoln Terrace made a huge gain in their attendance. So did Round Hill. Those are very different schools. Round Hill is what our largest school after the high schools in the division. So we can see that it's happening at very large schools or at smaller schools. And also, I wanted to note, say, Breckenridge Middle School. I happen to know that from 24 to 25, their enrollment went from 500 to 750. So that's telling us that, and their attendance improved. So with a large influx of students, they were able to maintain culture and expectations. So there are things that we can learn. So this is the stuff that the context that you don't get from just numbers. And I just want to applaud the division for the strides we're making, but also like that we're collegial and collaborative and share. I am highly concerned about our high school attendance. And so I do want to note, we've had an influx of student support specialists. And this is one place where I would like to see what our gains will be there. Mr. Lopez Ortiz did bring up something that's interesting. You know, I would be curious to see that attendance breakdown, because I would bet our CTE classes have probably really good attendance, because we know our completers have 100% graduation rate. So, and you got to be present to make the things that I bid on at the silent auction at the end of the year. So there's that, but there's also, you know, your core classes that are required for graduation, but people are there for that. But so I'd be curious if maybe maybe that might be indicative of other things, because I don't know how chronic absenteeism goes if you miss your more than however many days of a certain period, or if it levels out and things like that. So I'd be curious about if that breakdown was important and something that we could kind of flesh out there. So I appreciate that. Back one more. I wanted to look at the instruction. Yes. So I just wanted to note that there was a big full court press on quality first tier instruction, getting our teachers, you know, like the Hampton City Consortium and things like that. But I also wanted to note, we talk a lot about, like, we spent a lot of time tonight talking about benefits or maybe about budget. But what we did a year ago was we restructured organizationally to put a lot of emphasis on academics and instruction and follow through in our schools. So sometimes it might feel like we're not giving this the emphasis that it needs, but by staff and by results, you know, we're putting, as a board, we're trying to make sure we're putting our support behind the division in that way. So anybody, anything else? Okay, thank you very, very much. Mr. Freeman?
Be a short summer.
I was wondering if that was coming.
We're just going to let Dr. Jameson and Mr. Freeman be the 1-2 punch. We're like, and before we close, Dr. Jameson, Mr. Freeman.
Yeah, I have 1 year left. 9 months.
All right, thank you.
And Madam Chair, I just wanted to circle back just briefly on your point about restorative discipline and restorative practice. I just wanted to talk about our approach over the last 5 or 6 years. Really has been about prevention, restoration, and logical consequences. It is a comprehensive approach to make sure that our students are we're spending, yes, a lot of time in preventing problematic behaviors and teaching what our students should do. Again, that we're working with children every day. And so just like we teach the ABCs 1, 2, 3s, we're also teaching them what it means to behave in the classroom. And we're using those practices to teach and opportunities to teach, but we are holding them accountable and offering logical consequences when lines are crossed, right? So it is a comprehensive approach: prevention, restoration, and logical consequences. And so I just wanted to say that is our approach. And so again, just as our team shared, I just want to thank the board for your continued support when it comes to curriculum and instruction and our staffing support. You'll continue to hear me say that we need people for our people. We're in a people business. We are not dealing with paper all day long. We're serving our young people, and we need the people to do that. So for everyone who's, kind of reaching out and having all aspects of schooling involved, I just want to thank the team for coming together, because this trajectory of moving in the right direction, it means a lot, because our kids get one shot in their seat, right? And so we want to make sure that that is a quality experience for each and every child. So we're going to keep working and keep pushing to make sure that that is the case in every instance. So just wanted to say that, and Madam Chair, that concludes my report.
Thank you. And, there were two more numbers I meant to note. One, our graduation rate went down a smidge percentage-wise, but we actually graduated nearly 100 more students,
Right.
which was over 1,000. And the other thing is I noted our students with disabilities graduation rate was over 90%, and that has been a subgroup that we've really needed to focus on, and so I wanted to make sure to point those out too, so thank you. All right, so moving on to the work of the board. So with respect to the work of the board, yes. We're going to go ahead and focus on the evolution of the School Board Member Development Committee, because we have kind of discussed some, our student representative roles up till now, and we checked off our first of a biannual discussion about communication, and we will be holding off, for example, on discussing, presenting and attending conferences. So, and then policy-wise, the other part of the work of the board is regarding any policies, and as Dr. Siebert mentioned, that there will be another timeline, where that kind of will bubble up towards February. So make sure if there are things that you have ideas or questions about regarding policy, to field that to Dr. Siebert, so that we can have some of those discussions here if it's pertinent ahead of February. But I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Jameson and Ms. Watkins, who are going to kind of pick a topic or two that have bubbled up through the month or whatnot to help with board member development over the course of our entire year.
Thank you. So Dr. Jameson and I thought it would be valuable for not only the board and the superintendent and staff, but also for our community for us to walk through some parts of our school board handbook. These things that we bring up in meetings at the end of the meetings as part of the work of the board is to help us, to remind us of our purpose, and sometimes it's about protocol. So we'll pick some things like Ms. Apel said, our Chair Apel said, we'll pick some things that either may have bubbled up or something that resonates with the topic at hand, right? So tonight, there's two things. First, I just want to read out loud our core beliefs. And I believe our handbook is out on our division website, right? For the public to see. So you can always go out there and look at, our job description. But I want to start with the core beliefs is one thing that I want to read out to you all, because not only tonight, but especially tonight, you have heard all the work of this division and the things that we as a board have been building policies for and supporting. So our core beliefs are, we put students first. You heard that, you see that. We embrace equity and celebrate diversity. We care about all of our students. As you can see, we're paying attention to the scores, not only overall, but for all of the subgroups that our students identify with. We value effective, high-quality instruction. You heard that. You hear that constantly. You've seen all the measures that we've taken as a division under Dr. White's leadership as our superintendent to give our students high-quality instruction and effective instruction. We value our community. You've seen us open the Community Empowerment Center, the CTE programs that are developing our community's workforce. We value you. The you is everyone. It is our fellow board member. It is our superintendent. It is our staff, our executive staff, our principals, our, everyone, all of our faculty, all of our employees, everyone that touches or interacts with any of our students or any of our buildings, and then our parents and our community and our business partners and our city council. We value everyone that we work with to make sure that our students get what we need. I think that it's important for us to remember our core beliefs as we go about our day and go about the work that we do. That is a message and a reminder to not only us, the board. It's going to get hard sometimes. Decisions are hard. Opinions will vary. Beliefs will vary as your core beliefs in your soul might be different, right? Who you support and who you don't support politically is a thing. But I encourage everyone to hold on to the why and what your core beliefs are about our students. And keep that in the forefront of your minds as you are communicating, as you are interacting, as you are making decisions.
Thank you, Ms. Watkins.
I got nothing. No piggyback?
No, okay, I'll piggyback now. I would add, and only because of I think, no, I was speechless. You did a wonderful job. I think I would add simply to call onto page 5, and this is in recognition of the current context in which we are all working in our various roles, is explicitly written is our board is independent and apolitical. They are here for the best interest of the children in the city of Roanoke. That is where we center our conversations. It is the root of what we do. And I think that undergirds those core beliefs. I wish we lived in a world where it didn't feel important to emphasize that, but I think it is. So I would just add that as we go forward.
Thank you. And I do appreciate, being reminded of the handbook, which I know at the beginning of Dr. Jameson's tenure that she can barely remember. It's been so long, and she keeps reminding us. It didn't even exist. And so I very much appreciate the idea of treating our handbook like a curriculum, that as we revisit it over the course of the year, we will all get a good, like our full board curriculum over the course of every year. So thank you for that. All right, so moving on to future business. One thing of note, which also ties in with announcements and reminders, we do have our fall retreat coming up, and I just want to preface to board members, we've had the dates picked out, but we may be reaching out with a poll regarding potential time variation on the full day one, which is the 8th, because we feel that it's, Mr. Cherry and I feel that it's very important for us to have as much FaceTime, like person-to-person FaceTime as possible. So we're going to try to gauge what that is, because that may impact how we, do the programming that day. And also we might adjust the time to try to get better FaceTime, better accessibility for our board members to be present. So, so keep an eye out for potentially something coming from Ms. Tresky regarding that, or Mr. Cherry or myself. And then other announcements and reminders. So we have our joint city council and school board meeting on October 6th at the Community Empowerment Center. We have our retreat October 7th and 8th here in the William B. Robertson building. And then our next school board meeting is October 14th, and then the workshop on the 28th. How are we looking at attendance for October 14th, that school board meeting? Because that would potentially be our, for example, our vote for true-up application as well. Is there anyone who anticipates being absent on October 14th?
I need to double check my calendar, but I may be leaving for an academic conference that day. I'll be sure to let Ms. Tresky know.
Great. And then October 28th, that school board workshop, any anticipated absences on that day? Right. Okay. Wonderful. And then I think we'd already discussed October 6th, the joint city council meeting as well, and the retreat has been on the calendar for a while. But like I said, we already talked about the second day. So, all right. And hearing no further business, this meeting is adjourned.